I'm going to show you how to create 3 essential ambient pad sounds that you would hear all over 90s electronic music in genres like atmospheric drum and bass, tech house, and deep house. Let's jump into it. Alright, the detuned saw pad. This is one of the most common pad sounds you'll hear in 90s atmospheric ambient music. And this is a cool pad sound because you could make it on an analog synth, you could do it on a Rompler. It's just a very impactful sound. So in the Korg Triton here, we want to find a sawtooth oscillator, so we'll just grab a basic saw. I'm going to transpose it down, -12. And then what I'm going to do is copy oscillator 1, enable oscillator 2, and let's paste oscillator 1 into oscillator 2. And so we now have 2 saw waves stacked up, both of them transposed down -12. We're going to go into oscillator here, and what we want to do is detune one of these saw waves. So let's just grab the second oscillator here, go to tune, and let's just bring it down a tiny bit. You can already hear that difference there, that kind of phasing sound just with the slight detune on there. And so we could reset it back to 0. The more you detune it, the crappier it's going to sound. So you typically only need, I'd say anywhere between -1 and -5 is a good spot to detune one of the oscillators. Next thing we need here is a low pass filter. So we're going to grab our low pass filter here and just bring the cutoff down, I don't know, anywhere around 50 where the brightness starts to disappear. Then what we may want to do here is slightly modulate the filter cutoff, so we can go into LFO here. Let's just do a sine wave LFO on both of these with a very slow frequency, so it moves very slowly. Let's key sync both of these, and then let's apply these to the low pass filter. Too bright. I'm going to keep bringing that intensity down. We can even mess with this detune a little more. All right, let's go into effects here. Let's just do a reverb. And then super important here, we already get some like phasing chorusy type sound just by detuning one of the oscillators, but we could double up on that by using a chorus as an insert effect here. I'm gonna bring the intensity of the LFOs down a little more as well. I just want like some subtle movement around the cutoff point. I don't want it to get too bright. We can add some release to the amp envelope. Bump up the volume here. That filter, when you use a low pass filter and you drop down the cutoff, you lose volume because you're removing a lot of the frequencies in the upper end. So typically you have to compensate by just increasing the volume. And we're actually clipping a little bit here. And that's kind of the gist of it, folks. And so you can play around with this. Every synth is going to sound a little bit differently just based on if you're using a Rompler and it has like a different sawtooth wave sample in there. The filters will sound different in different synths, and how you detune will sound different in certain synths as well. But very, very classic pad here. You get that like woozy sound, which again comes from using two of the same oscillator and then just detuning one of them. Now you could play around with this same concept with different oscillator types. It's just a nice, very simple, like soft, detuned, bassy pad sound. All right, this next one here, we're gonna do a very airy-like chord. And if you go on forums like Dogs and Acid, you're gonna see this question so much. Hey, how do I create those airy sounding pads? Most people get it wrong and they reach for an analog synth. That's not what you wanna do. You wanna reach for a Rompler or a sample-based synth like the Korg Triton. So airy bass sounds typically start with some type of choir sound. Now you go into any Rompler, you're gonna have an oscillator category for choir. And the sample there is literally just people going, oh, and then they probably stack a bunch of them up, but that's what you want, some type of choir sound. Very nice sound there. So we're going to take that. And let's go ahead and just put this in context by putting a reverb on here. And then let's put a little bit of release. And then we'll get some attack. That's really the essence of like a airy, crystally pad, is you are using a vocal sample. Now, there are a lot of ways to tweak this up and go a little further. One thing I may do is just remove a lot of the bass from that because I want this to be a super airy sound. I may even add some little bit of a boost on the highs. We can transpose the oscillator down, which gives you, again, kind of a little more bass, but still like a nice thin pad. Now we could change out the oscillator as well. So if we let's just search for voice here. Let's go ahead and enable another oscillator here. And let's come to this second oscillator, have like a similar amp envelope to slowly fade in our sound, but let's have it come in a little later than the first oscillator. And let's do another vocal sample there. Let's go into choir. Shit, let's grab the same sample. Could do the same thing we did in the detune song. We could detune the second vocal sample. If you listen very, very closely, you can almost hear this flanging sound in the background when that second oscillator comes in. Now, you could go in a million different directions from here with these types of like airy pads. I could layer it with a string of some sort. just do like a sawtooth. And that is the airy choir pad. All right, next one we're gonna do here is the high pass sci-fi sweep pad. You'd hear this all over Intelligent Jungle, very filter heavy type patch. And so what I'm gonna do is just dial in a reverb quickly. It's a terrible room reverb. Let's go for the smooth halt. And I wanna use a sawtooth for this. To do a low pass filter here. Now, in the Korg Triton specifically, you can't use just a low pass. You get a low pass plus high pass filter. Take that low pass filter here and just open it all the way, and then get that high pass control here. And so we want our high pass filter closed, and what we're going to do is essentially modulate it to slowly sweep down, which will start to reveal a lot of the lower frequencies and give us that kind of, that really like stingy sci-fi sweep sound. So let's look to the right here under filter, envelope, and we're going to draw a nice little sweep in here, and then we're going to apply it to the high pass filter intensity. And so we'll apply it to that high pass filter and then try to get a nice little sweep. Let's add some release to the amp envelope. And then what we can do here is enable oscillator 2. Let's copy oscillator 1, then paste it into oscillator 2. And then we could do some type of effect down here. Doesn't really matter. We just want to thicken up the sound a little. Little chorus, perfect tool for the job there. Let me speed that up a little. And then let's even go in and do our detune trick here. And maybe I transpose both oscillators down -12. And let's get that one up. Maybe not. Let's not do that. Let's not transpose both of these. Yeah, that's kind of the little high pass sci-fi sweep, I call it there. All right, folks, hope you found the video useful. Hopefully this gives you some great ideas here for kind of a base level understanding of some of these different pads you would hear. Now you can go in, make them your own, change out the oscillators, try this in a different synth, and have fun with it. Peace out.